In this first problem, you have 48 hundredths divided by 2 tenths. We know that this number is our dividend, and this number is our divisor, always. So when we go to set up our division house, our dividend goes on the inside, and our divisor goes on the outside. In division, you cannot divide something into 2 tenths equal pieces. So we have to make that 2 tenths into a whole number. So I do that by multiplying by 10, which changes this problem into 2. And I have to multiply by 10 on the inside, divided by 4.8. So when I change it around, it becomes 4 and 8 tenths divided by 2. And now I just do regular division. I'm going to go ahead and move my decimal straight up. 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 8 4 times. Oops, sorry, 2 times 2 is 4. Subtract against 0, drop down the 8. 2 goes into 8 4 times. 4 times 2 is 8. I subtract, I get 0, and I can be done. In this problem, I have 4 and 27 hundredths divided by 35 hundredths. Again, this is my dividends, and this is my divisor, always. So when I set up my division house, my dividend goes on the inside of my division house, and my divisor, what I'm dividing by, goes on the outside. In this case, I can't divide by 35 hundredths, so I have to make that into a whole number. I do that by taking 0.35 and multiplying by 100, which means I'm moving the decimal 2 places to the right to get 35. So I'll go ahead and do that. If I multiply by 100 on the outside, I have to multiply by 100 on the inside, so I move this 2 places to the right. My new problem becomes 427 divided by 35. In this problem, I'd say, how many times is 35 going to 4? It doesn't. How many times is 35 going to 42? It goes in there once. 1 times 35 is 35. And I subtract, have to borrow. That makes that 12 minus 5 is 7. I drop down the 7. I say, how many times is 35 going to 77? If I didn't know that, I could use my distributive property, separate out 30 plus 5, that's my divisor. And I could start by multiplying by 2. This would become my number, my quotient. 2 times 30 is 60. 2 times 5 is 10. 60 plus 10 is 70, so I know that 2 is pretty close. That goes above the 7. It is 70. I subtract, I get 7. In this case, since I still have a remainder, I have to include a decimal here, which will go straight up, and then I can put a 0. Now I can drop the 0 down. How many times does 35 go into 70? It goes in there twice. It is 70. I subtract, I get 0. My answer is 12 and 2 tenths. In this problem, my problem says 12 divided by 5 tenths. This again is my dividend, and this is my divisor. We've been very trained to think that the larger number has to go on the outside or inside. In this case, it is. So we're going to go ahead and do 12 on the inside, and we're going to do 0.5 on the outside. I cannot do a divide by a decimal, so I have to multiply by 10, which changes this into 5. I don't have a decimal in here, so I have to add 1, and I have to move it 1 place to the right. When I do that, I have to add a 0 on the end. So my new problem becomes 120 divided by 5, and my decimal is here straight up. 5 doesn't go into 1. How many times does 5 go into 12? It goes in there 2 times. That's 10. I subtract, I get 2. I bring down the 0. How many times does 5 go into 20? It goes in there 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. I subtract, I get 0. I don't need to use my decimal, but I did work towards it, so my answer would be 24. In this problem, we're taking 9 tenths and we're dividing it by 1 and 8 tenths. Again, this is my dividend, and this is my divisor. So when I do this, 0.9 is going to go on the inside, and 1 and 8 tenths is going to go on the outside. It cannot divide something into 1 8/10 equal pieces, so I'm going to multiply by 10 to make this 18, which means I have to multiply this also by 10, and my decimal comes over here on the other side of the 9. So my new problem now becomes 9 divided by 18. So you would say, how many times does 9 go into 18? It doesn't. My decimal has to go straight up into my answer. In order for me to keep dividing, I have to include a 0 here. I still have the same value. It's still 9. So how many times does 18 go into 90? It goes in there 5 times. It is 90. I subtract and I get 0. My answer is 5/10.